Okay, so hi everyone. I'm here to talk about growing up with PHP. I have stage fright, so ignore my shaking. There will probably be some. But like Code Rabbi said, learn moves by sharing your knowledge with others. So, whee, let's go! This is the first time I'm giving this presentation, so that means I'm extra nervous.
Don't be. Relax.
So, let's start with you. Who in here ever used PHP 4? Okay. Who used it before PHP 5 came out? Okay. Most of you. I thought it was really painful.
I thought it was awesome. I didn't know any better. 5 years now.
Cool.
So learning programming is a little bit like playing an RPG game. When I was a kid, there was two things I really liked. Computers and computer games. So basically computers. And I played a lot of RPG games. And I realized when I was learning programming that basically it's the same thing. You start at level 1, you make a character, and it's super awesome, and then you level up. And then a few levels in, it becomes increasingly more difficult, and the XP you need to reach the next level is insane. And then at some point you go, okay, I'm sick of this character called PHP, so let's make a new one called iOS, and I'm sure it'll be awesome. And you go a few levels, and then you go back to PHP because that's the old character that you know. So it's kind of the same. And what this talk about is how PHP is unique. It fits all the stages of life, from newbie kid to big software projects. I've been a newbie kid when I was 12 years old, the student, and now the senior PHP engineer. And PHP works for all of it, which is super cool. So who am I? I am Michelle Sanver. I'm co-president of PHP Women. PHP Women is an awesome music group. What we do is make sure you're all comfortable in this community. We send people to conferences, we promote code of conduct, and we promote a safe, friendly environment, no matter who you are. I'm also an international speaker, which is really cool. Last year I spoke at I don't know how many conferences, and it worked out pretty well for me, even though I had stage fright, as you can tell. I actually blew Leap's budget last year. I spoke at too many conferences. Pretty cool. I'm an open source contributor, and I run my own open source project called OnHub, which is like GitHub, but for recipes. I love it. So if you're wondering about my accent, I'm Swedish and half Danish. So my Swedish is actually a bit Danish. And then in 2008, I decided to take a big step and move to Netherlands for love. I lived there until 2014, where I just decided that Netherlands was not for me. So I needed something new. And I needed some other place to work. So in 2014, I took the big leap and started working at this awesome web agency. We do amazing things. I work with one of the biggest APIs in Switzerland. We use Symfony for this, and we work with all the big retailers. We use Elasticsearch, and we're simply awesome. So let's look back to year 2000, when I was only 12 years old. You probably remember this. PHP styling HTML all in one file. How horrible it was. It made me want to be better. I knew I could do better. And what was horrible is that I found this piece of code from someone who just wrote it a few weeks ago. And that made me think, okay, this person is actually where I was then, also a newbie. And they probably Googled for PHP MySQL tutorial, and they got this tutorial from maybe 2002, 2003. Got all this outdated code. So it's our responsibility to keep the web updated somehow. Make sure your code comes before the others in the search engines. So of course, writing this kind of code, I started feeling the pain. It was really, really painful because you had all this code, all in one file, all your functions. So I started splitting it up a bit. I learned about include. So I could include everything. Let's make functions.php, this awesome, cool thing where I can put all of my logic. And suddenly my logic is separated from my presentation, somewhat in an early stage. Of course, functions.php became way too large. So what do? You make functions2.php until you eventually run out of numbers. So I had separate files included for header and footer and config for less duplication. This became an awesome website all of a sudden. Almost no duplication. Well, you know, still some mixed HTML, CSS, and PHP. And I got stuck here for a while. My first project when I was 12 years old, it was a page about me. And my mother is a graphical artist. She made this cute GIF with a cat wagging its tail. And my friends started thinking, this website is pretty cool, you should have a guest book like all others. So that's what I made, a guest book. And of course, being a newbie, I got spammed, later hacked, and I didn't know what to do, being only 12 years old. Got all these weird Viagra posts. So I started looking into solutions. And I learned about user input validation and escaping really, really early on. And I think that really, really helped me. So I still did some micro-optimizations at this stage, like naming my functions.php to things that made sense, made database functions.php, made whatever functions.php. And it started looking quite cool, splitting out CSS. But I needed more. And this is when I was already on IRC. In normal channels, my friends were there. So I thought, let's join a PHP channel. This is where it got really painful, because I decided my nickname would be my real name, Michelle. I got kicked for pretending to be a girl to get help. That was, okay, thank you. So my first community experience was horrible.
Can you share what IRC channel that was on?
I remember it was a PHP channel. I think it was on FNet.
Okay. Those guys are all.
And then I joined other channels on different networks. Obviously, most could not believe I was female. And I got people who believed I was an FBI agent, because I also told them my age together with the fact I'm a female, because it was more likely that you have an FBI agent on IRC than a 12-year-old girl.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah. And then, of course, when people found out, you got this joke. I booze. So yeah, people online by then, they almost came away from the community and almost from PHP. Having supportive parents really, really helped me. And I still love programming, because programming for me by then, it wasn't about the community, it wasn't about other people, it was about what I could do on this device and what magic I could do. My dad always was really, really supportive, and he would ban those people from IRC channels if he could. So I isolated my code, and almost no one but me saw what I wrote, because women can't code. This led to doubting myself and my code, everything I did, and wondering if I was good, all because the community by then, for me, sucked. But okay, let's go to more positive notes. So, the hobby stage, I guess it kept on going, and I got more and more into PHP. I joined the community again, pretending to be male, and that worked. I got treated like everyone else. I made small bots and small websites for my school, for people I met, and it was really, really fun. I made this bot for a website called Neopets. Does anyone know it? Yeah. Neopets, where you could have this furry digital animal, and on this bot I could tell what other people were doing with the Neopets, and it was a lot of fun when you were a kid. And then eventually, PHP 5 came out. Yay! I hated it. I was so used to the way I was programming, and suddenly there was this concept called object-oriented PHP. What should I do with this? Okay, everyone else is using it, so let's change database functions to PHP to database class.php. You know, just use some different syntax and call it OOP, because I don't know why you should use this syntax, it doesn't make any sense. But okay, people are doing it, so classes instead of functions, got it. But then something else in PHP 5 actually was really useful. Because I remember when you started having a lot of includes. So you would make a file called include.php, and in there you would have your includes and include only that file, so that you wouldn't have to write all your includes. Obviously, autoloading changed this, so thank you, PHP 5. That was the first thing I noticed for a while, because I still didn't like OOP. Somewhere around then, I got my first paid project. Someone on IRC needed a web shop. Come on, I can make that in 3 days. Not so hard, it's just some MySQL and output it and we're done. Yeah, that was the worst code I've written in my life, including my starting code. And I actually started dreaming in PHP during these 3 days, where I didn't sleep much, like 2 hours and a half max, to have time to make this. And I didn't only dream PHP code, my dreams were written in PHP. After that, I said never ever again, and I learned what underestimating was. But I made it, I made a web shop. And they kept it up for maybe a month or 2. Luckily they didn't get hacked before then. I was still developing with FTP, sometimes directly on the server for small changes. Broke the code, was like, whoops, ah! So then, of course, you changed it again, and hopefully no one was online between that time, so you didn't really notice. And that's how life was for a hobby programmer before life gets real. And because it was still my main hobby and what I really, really like to do, when it was time for university, I went into software engineering. And something magic happened. Believe it or not, Java helped me. I learned object-oriented programming by learning Java in university. And, well, what we first made was a text-based game. So I actually had a lot of fun because of my game hobby. And then we made a graphical game out of it. And then, of course, design patterns. We were supposed to make this 7 design patterns in this game. Implement 7 design patterns in a good way, and you passed the course. That was a bit harder than I thought, but singleton was accepted. And suddenly, when I was done, I looked at my code, and it was so much cleaner and better. And after this, I felt like an architect and a software engineer, not just a script kiddie anymore. I looked at that code now. So I made an abstract mess in PHP trying to implement object-oriented PHP, applying my newfound knowledge, and I found myself being a pro. It was so amazing, so many design patterns. Because I thought by then that code quality is measured by the amount of design patterns that you have. Yeah. I got lost in my spaghetti abstraction and wanted to eventually cry. It was, at some point, it's better to make code without any abstractions than to abstract everything. Lesson learned. Be careful with all your abstractions and all the architectural choices, because eventually it becomes too difficult, and anyone looking at it, yourself looking at it 2 weeks later, will have no clue what it is. So, someone else can do better than my spaghetti abstractions. Let's use a framework. Yay! So I started with Sanver 1, and I loved it. Frameworks are fun. MSC is fun. So let's make my own framework. Everyone does. Yeah, that's that stage. I'm sure we've all been there. I didn't get so far with my own framework before I realized how much work it is. And I started using frameworks most of the time. Nowadays I use Symfony 2, but that always changes depending on the needs. And I also learned that computer science is awesome. This is something I learned way later after graduating. All the things that I could use today, I could never really use in a hobby stage. But today, it's really, really useful. Like sorting and data structures and all those things that didn't make any sense. Why should I use this? I'm just a web developer. But it's nice. After university, I was lost. Really, what do you do when you're done with this? I had all this experience, I had lots of small projects that I had made, but I could not find a job. Everyone demanded 3 years of experience. So I did what everyone else in Sweden does. I started my own company. Yippee! And that was awesome. Actually, not. So I got a mentor on IRC. He told me, okay, so let's look at your code. Oh my God, you don't have any tests, what are you doing? So he sat down with me and he taught me PHP unit and unit testing. After that, I went back to some of my old code and I realized I could hardly test it because it was so abstracted. And then I started writing a lot better tests and a lot better code only because I learned testing. And also, I suddenly stopped breaking things because I had tests and a stroke and I could tell in advance. PHPmentoring.org is such an awesome resource for this. and you can go and find mentors in there and learn a lot. I still didn't have any clients at UP. Okay, that's not true. A family member on my boyfriend's side wanted a website. So I made a website for him, and it didn't really go very well, and my self-esteem was to the bottom. But this guy called Scoop, he said, hey, come to my conference, it's really cheap and it's really nearby. I said, yeah, I don't know new people, I don't like new people, I'm shy, and I will feel left out. And I can just Google those videos and learn everything online anyway. Then my boyfriend, Edwin, he said, okay, go. You will learn so much, and afterwards you will thank me. Thank you, Scoop and Edwin. My first conference changed everything. I came back, I was super excited, I was jumping up and down, I was so inspired. I had gone to so many talks. I learned about MySQL, performance tuning. I started performance tuning all of my databases. I knew so many things I did wrong. I learned so much I didn't know. And the best thing about conferences by then I found was get to know what you don't know. So I always went to the talks where I thought the title didn't make any sense. And that's how I really started growing. When I went to these conferences, often in the keynotes, they would ask, how many of you have contributed to open source? Stand up. So, how many of you have contributed to open source? Stand up. And then they would clap their hands. Thank you all. And they don't sit there feeling ashamed for not having contributed. And those people would feel so proud for having done it. But I was still afraid, because of all of my experiences in the community. If I contributed, I would get trolled, because women can't code, and I knew this. And because of all of my experiences, my self-esteem was down rock bottom. But then at this conference, I met this awesome guy called Ego Leader. He started looking at my code and he said, actually, what you're doing is pretty awesome. You're cool, I would like to talk more to you about programming. So we sat down and started talking about programming, and he guided me, almost held my hand, through my first open source contribution. And this was a life changer for me. Obviously, he taught me about imposter syndrome and said that I had it big time. And it's okay, because as long as you realize it, you can somehow get by it. My first open source contribution was a small GitHub link on this webpage called ProTalk. ProTalk, I don't even know if it's still up. Is it protalk.me? Probably not used anymore, much. But the idea behind ProTalk was that you could watch videos from conferences and have the slides right next to it. And that was really cool and something I was passionate about. So when you're trying to find your first project, try to find something you're passionate about. So obviously, from all of this, I became a software engineer. And I had horrible community experiences in the past. But now, I love the community. It's the reason I still do PHP. Community is awesome. And PHP on Freenode might not be the coolest channel, but PHP-C, PHP mentoring, and all the channels around, all the conferences, and all the places are amazing. Yeah. So, lessons learned. One of them was testing. You know, when you don't have any tests, you change something and then something else breaks and you have to go back and fix it. That was me before, and I guess we're all been there. So lessons learned, always, always, always test your code. In the beginning I thought, okay, testing my code is no fun, and it takes time and blah. But I work for someone who almost gets mad if we don't test our code, because it's so important with code quality. And don't make a web shop in 3 days, please. I would rather overestimate than underestimate, because the rest of your time you can spend making the applications awesome. You can tune it. You can do different things. And be honest with your clients. My first client for Yippee was kind of a client I really had to have. So I pretended I could do more than I actually could. And that's something that a lot of us maybe have been through, or maybe not. You know, I can always learn it along the way or try. But nowadays, if I don't have an experience in something they're asking for, I either refer to someone else, or I say, look, I have experience in this and this and this. I maybe brushed this topic before, but it's gonna take longer if I do it because I had to learn along the way. And if I'm honest, they usually say, okay, that's cool, let's go with it. So honesty pays, big time. Also, never, ever, ever assume anything about people, like them being an FBI agent or something. Online or offline. You don't know the person sitting in front of you. Maybe you do, but not fully. Never assume anything. Always ask them. And I started reading this book recently that just came out from Steve Camp. Anyone know Nerd Fitness? No? No one? So Nerd Fitness is this awesome website where you level up your life and your fitness with RPG and different nerd references. In his book, he makes a reference to South Park. Does anyone know the underpants clones in South Park? Yeah, some of you. So what he said in his book is that the underpants clones, they're so nice, they have the tunes, they have the mission. Collect underpants, that's all they do. And they're really, really good at it. And they go everywhere, the duty. And then you ask, what's phase 2 to get to phase 3? But what is phase 2? No one knows. So they're stuck in phase 1. And they keep collecting underpants. And that's what I actually found myself doing. I was collecting underpants in a different context. I was collecting so much information at conferences. How many of you plan to go home and actually do something with what you learned at Ski PHP? Most of you, all of you. But how many of you think, honestly, that you will actually do it?
All of it.
Honestly, think of your last conferences, did you? Sometimes. So, you often get stuck in phase 1, and you get so inspired by all the things you learn, and you want to learn more. So you look at another video, you look at another talk, you read another book. But my lesson here, spend more time in phase 2 than in phase 1, and you really level up your life. Because that's how you really profit and go to phase 3. So stop collecting too much information you can't do anything with. And me being shy and really wanting to stay inside of my comfort zone, I was comfortable but not happy when I lived in the Netherlands having my own company, which eventually when I started going to conferences, actually started going better. I started getting more clients, I started writing articles, and I started having some fun. But working remotely, I felt isolated and alone. So, if you feel isolated and alone, do something about it. So I went to a youth group. How many here go to your local youth group? How many wish you had a local youth group? Start it. And so, if you're not happy, change your life. That's the motto I go by. And obviously it seems I can do anything if I set my mind to it. I'm an international conference speaker, even though I have horrible stage fright. So if I can do it, so can you. And it may be cliche, but the best things really do happen outside of your comfort zone. For me, I grew up the most in 2014, when I decided to leave my entire life behind and go to a country where I knew not a single person, to work for a company that I have been wanting to work for. And that's scary, moving to a country, knowing no one, but you know what? After a few months, it's the best thing to happen to me ever in my life. So go as far as you can, do as much as you can, because the best things really do happen outside of your comfort zone. So growing up, there might be some growing pains. I certainly had them, as you could tell. And also, it's important to remember, even though this is a really long RPG, there's no end level. We never stop growing. Our character may eventually die. Some languages do that. But I think PHP will stay forever now. PHP 7 is here and is better than ever. Yay! Go PHP 7. And we have things like strict type hinting and the functionalities Davey mentioned in his talk yesterday. Anyone saw Davey's talk? Okay, so I removed some parts from this presentation because people would have seen his talk. Okay. PHP 7 is blazing fast. So try it today and grow a little more. How many of you are already using PHP 7? Any of you in production yet? Yay, go harder! So, we are using PHP 7. We run all the tests against it, and we're about to upgrade. Because what we experienced was in our API when we index products, which is the slowest operation. In PHP 5.6, it's quite slow, so we started using HHVM, which was way quicker. Anyone use HHVM? Okay, it's way quicker, but with PHP 7, we got the same performance as HHVM. So that was really cool, and I was really impressed. So that's why we will soon upgrade. So don't be afraid to grow. In fact, never ever grow up. Because keep growing, keep learning, keep being awesome. And growing up, despite what I learned early in my career, is best done together. Because community works. I wouldn't be here on this stage without community. I wouldn't live in Switzerland without community. I would probably still be in Netherlands. miserable, unhappy, still trying to go by. So community for me is what made me stay in PHP. I would probably go to another language otherwise. I tried, but the community sucked. iOS community, don't go there. So, this is my first time presentation. First time giving this presentation. So please, 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 give me feedback. And now it's time to contribute to my talk. So this can be your first open source contribution. Did you experience any setbacks in PHP that I did not mention that almost made you quit? What was it?
It's kind of a long story, but I'll try to keep it short. We were running ASP on Linux servers, on Red Hat servers, because ChiliSoft made this component that made that work. Anyway, I wanted to play with PHP, so I built, before I really knew how to compile something, I tried compiling PHP and got it installed, but then it broke all of our ChiliSoft stuff, and I did this in production for our servers. We had client websites running on it, and then we were on the phone with ChiliSoft for like a week, and we gave them root access to our boxes so they could figure out what happened, and they finally disabled PHP, and that made all the other sites work again. So I think I know what caused that. I think it was the ASP tags. Like, I think somehow PHP was seeing the ASP tags and trying to run all of the ASP code. I don't know. Anyway,
That's possible.
it's probably what it was. But I didn't use PHP for about another year because of that.
I can understand that. Thanks. Anyone experienced bad community experiences? You don't have to say what it was, unless you don't want to. Okay, so only 2 of you. That's actually really, really 3. 4. Okay, I hope they were all minor.
The good ones definitely outweigh them, usually.
Yeah. So, for me, the setbacks, and there's also things that happened recently that's not so nice in the community. But for every bad person, there's another 100 that's really nice. Or even another 1,000 that outweighs the bad people. Because together, we can tell them that they're assholes. Yeah, that's actually quite nice. And I also got operating status, so I can just keep them out. So, what are you looking forward to in growing up with PHP, in PHP 7 and what is to come? What's your favorite things looking forward to try after skiing PHP?
I would eventually like to get the courage to try and become a contributing part of internals. Before. Maybe not this year, but I'll get there eventually. I just got to work on that whole courage thing.
That's definitely a really, really good goal. I wanted to contribute to internals, but with all the discussions lately, that's something that's holding me back and something I'm really scared of doing. I do know some C, so I think I could be really helpful.
You can write my C code because I can't, and I can spin it on your map. It's like,
Oh yeah, I could be a ghostwriter.
yeah, let's do that.
So why I still doing PHP?
Because it's the same reason I started, it has associative arrays.
That's a good reason. I still do it because I know it really well, and because the community is awesome. I wouldn't do it anymore without the community. I would probably move to another language. Because PHP has its quirks just like any other language, but the community is so big that whatever it is, we can complain about it together. And that's kind of what makes it awesome.